The story begins at Kashin University in Akanon City. A student sleeps face down on his desk during class. The professor calls for him to wake up while the other students mock him. They call him a lost cause. The boy suddenly wakes up and asks himself why he is not dead. He sits up and touches his head in confusion. The professor tells the class to quiet down. He tells the boy that the Tojo family has his sympathy. The professor compares the boy to his successful brother, Tenryu, and the classmates whisper about how the boy is a laughingstock. The boy realizes he has just reincarnated into this body, which belongs to someone named Tojo Reis. He remembers his past life before he reincarnated. His real name was Yi Tenki. He had long white hair and wore traditional robes. He mastered pill forging and artifact refining, reaching the very peak of the cultivation world. After 5,000 years of training, he became the strongest person in the world. He endured thousands of lightning strikes and was one step away from ascending. Suddenly, he was stabbed through the chest and betrayed by a comrade named Shuang'er. He had treated Shuang'er like family, but she was actually the daughter of the sole emperor he had killed in the past. She waited a long time to get her revenge. Bleeding from his mouth, Yi Tenki smiles and says a guy starved for family love was taken down by family. He decides he will not just die quietly. A dark aura surrounds him as he grabs Shuang'er. He blows himself up in a giant explosion, killing himself, Shuang'er, and the Lord of the Demonic Path all at once. Back in the present, he looks at his hand and admits he desperately wanted to live. He accepts his new body and promises to settle the humiliations this boy suffered, along with his own past grudges. He notices that the boy was not actually a fool. He looks inward and sees a poisoned needle planted directly inside his brain. The needle was meant to agitate his nerves and kill him. He realizes he only survived because of the reincarnation. Yi Tenki decides he needs to remove the needle as soon as possible. He knows exactly how to get stronger to repay his debts. He suddenly stands up from his desk, causing his chair to scrape loudly and startling his classmates. He vows that he won't let whoever planted the needle get away with it. The professor yells at Reis to sit down because class is not over yet. Reis looks at him with a cold expression. He thinks to himself that the professor is a man without virtue who just acts high and mighty. The professor looks terrified as Reis stares at him. Reis remembers he used to be a sect master with countless disciples, so he refuses to take orders from a man like him. Reis walks out of the classroom while the angry professor yells at him for ignoring him. As he leaves, he decides that from today on, he is no longer Yi Tenki, but Tojo Reis, and he will live proudly in this body. Walking outside, Reis realizes that people in this world can live comfortably without any cultivation. Because of his strong mental strength, he easily searches through the original boy's memories. He sits on the pavement and tries to gather energy. He notices that spiritual energy is very scarce here. He realizes that even if he trained for 10,000 years in this world, he would never reach the same power level he had in his past life. He decides to just focus on removing the poison needle from his brain first. Reis goes to the university's men's dormitory and enters his room. According to his memories, 4 people share the room, but 2 are in class and the other rarely shows up. He locks the door, noting he has a little over an hour before classes end, to prevent the bed from breaking and accidentally pushing the needle deeper from the shock. He sits down on the floor. He notes that the culprit planted the needle perfectly so that even a medical scan could not find it. It was designed to turn the boy into an idiot without killing him outright. Reis sits cross-legged and a blue aura of energy forms around him. He uses the energy to locate the needle, realizing it is as thin as silk. This means the person who planted it is a master at controlling Kai. Sweat drips down his face as he gets angry, vowing to crush whoever did this to a child. Because the needle has been lodged in his brain for years, it has fused with his flesh. Reis notes that pulling it out safely will use up a lot of his remaining mental strength. He focuses his energy and pushes upward. The needle shoots out of the top of his head. It flies across the room and hits a wall clock, cracking the glass and lodging itself in the center. Reis breathes heavily while sitting on the floor. He realizes his body is incredibly weak from being tormented by the needle for so many years. Exhausted, he loses consciousness and collapses face first onto the ground. He wakes up later in a hospital bed attached to enrollment for drip. He sits up, surprised that the ordeal landed him in the hospital. He looks down and sees a girl sleeping next to his bed, holding onto his arm. The girl wakes up and excitedly calls him Big Brother. She cries tears of joy seeing him awake. A doctor checks Reis with a stethoscope and tells the girl that Reis is just mentally exhausted, but otherwise perfectly fine and ready to be discharged anytime. The girl smiles warmly at Reis with tears in her eyes, relieved by the good news. Reis is touched by her genuine warmth. He thinks about how in his past life as Tenki, he only lived for cultivation and hadn't felt something like this in 1,000 years. Looking through the boy's memories, he identifies her as Heizuki Kasumi, his foster parents' daughter. He remembers a time from their childhood when a young Kasumi stood in front of him to protect him from bullies. Even when everyone else thought he was an idiot, she never looked down on him. On the other hand, his real parents abandoned him with Kasumi's family without a second thought as soon as the poisoned needle started affecting his brain. Reis thanks Kasumi. He thinks to himself that the old brother she knew is gone, but he promises to protect her from everything in this world as Reis. Kasumi suddenly hugs him tightly and says she was incredibly worried about him. Reis smiles gently, tells her not to cry, and reassures her that he is totally fine now. Kasumi pulls back and looks closely into his eyes. She notices they are suddenly full of life and asks if he somehow got smarter. Reis pats her on the head and smiles, confirming that he did get smarter. He looks away and clenches his fist, silently vowing that he won't let a single person who tried to hurt him escape. The next morning at 7 a.m., Reis sits in the university cafeteria eating a massive mountain of food. The other students stare at him in shock, wondering how one person can eat so much. Reis ignores them and continues stuffing his face. He thinks to himself that Kasumi told him to stay home and rest, but he wants to show up early so word spreads that his mind is finally back to normal. The surrounding students laugh, calling him the famous Tojo idiot and joking that he collapsed in the dorm just from being hungry. Reis knows he needs to stay on guard and get his physical strength back quickly since the mastermind is still hiding. At 2 p.m., Reis goes to the university library. He sits at a desk, rapidly flipping through several large books at once. Other students notice him through the window and mock him. They assume he is just looking at manga or pretending to read to get attention. Reis ignores their comments. He realizes that because this world is critically lacking in spiritual energy, he cannot use his old training methods to raise his realm. He decides he needs to rely on medicinal herbs to heal his body. Since there are no magical spirit herbs in this world, he plans to track down normal herbs with similar effects and make his own formulas. He studies a picture of a large root in one of the medical books. Later that night at 1 a.m. in the men's dormitory, Reis floats in the air sitting cross-legged. A blue aura of energy surrounds him. He notes that his body is completely wrecked and his meridians are clogged. Knowing he can't even fight in his current state, he decides to force all the spiritual energy he gathered over the last few days through his body to flush out the remaining toxins. He concentrates, and black liquid begins to seep from his neck as he pushes the energy through his channels. His eye glows blue, and a massive burst of blue energy erupts around him. He successfully breaks through to the first stage Kai realm. He smiles, realizing that even though it is only the first stage of Kai refinement, his 5 senses are already pushed far beyond normal human limits. He looks at his hand covered in blue energy and states that he can sense the slightest movement within a 100-meter radius. Suddenly, he senses something outside. He turns and points his finger toward the glass balcony door just as a man outside gasps in surprise. The startled roommate asks what Reis is doing out on the balcony so late. Reis casually tells him to go to sleep because they have class tomorrow. The roommate looks confused. Reis worries that if his friend realizes his mind is back to normal, rumors will spread, which could alert the mastermind hiding on campus. Suddenly, the roommate laughs and ruffles Reis's hair, complimenting his new hairstyle. Reis realizes his friend only noticed the hair Kasumi fixed for him. Relieved that he was overthinking it, Reis goes back inside. He reflects that his friends have always been kind to him, but he knows he must regain his old strength to truly protect the people he cares about, no matter what obstacles he faces. Early the next morning in the girls' dormitory, Kasumi's roommate is amazed by her quick math skills and asks if she is in a good mood because she likes someone. Kasumi happily denies it and explains that her big brother is finally back to normal. Her roommate is skeptical because of Reis's reputation. Kasumi yells that those rumors were nonsense and everyone will soon see how incredible he is. She then pulls out her phone to show a video someone posted online. The video shows Reis practicing martial arts on the school field. Kasumi is annoyed because the comments are full of people making fun of him. Out on the track, Reis ignores the laughing students around him. He throws a powerful punch, practicing a basic technique called the True Dragon Fist. He thinks to himself that while this power is nothing compared to his past life, it is still enough to crush a boulder and handle ordinary martial artists. He acknowledges that his stamina still needs work. As he walks off the track, a tall, muscular student with slicked-back brown hair blocks his path. Reis stops and asks who he is and what he wants. The tall student smirks down at him. He states that Reis is definitely not the same as before. The student cracks his neck, his eyes glowing ominously in the shadows, and says things are getting troublesome. Reis just stares back at him calmly. The student angrily introduces himself as Hayashida Tsutomu. He demands that Reis stay away from Kasumi, claiming that an idiot like him will only drag her down. Reis remembers his past life as a Sect Master where immortals bowed to him. He finds it ironic that he is now being ordered around by a normal human. Reis calmly explains that Kasumi is his little sister, and whoever she likes is her own business. Hayashida gets even angrier. Reis clarifies that as her brother, he cares about her happiness. He tells Hayashida that Kasumi can date whoever she wants, but Hayashida is completely out of her league. Hayashida becomes furious. Reis thinks to himself that back in his old sect, a guy like this wouldn't even be fit to sweep the floors. Hayashida yells for a spar and throws a sudden punch at Reis's face. Reis easily catches the fist with one hand without flinching. He notes the lack of manners and dignity in a surprise attack. Recalling how emperors used to show him respect face to face, Hayashida stares in shock, unable to comprehend how his punch was stopped. Reis uses a technique called the True First Form Coiling Dragon. He tightly grips Hayashida's arm, twisting it and forcing him down to the track. Hayashida screams in pain as he drops to his knees. The surrounding students are stunned that a strong student from the physical education department was taken down instantly. Reis looks down at him and thinks that a mere mortal shouldn't dare to challenge a cultivator. He visualizes the long cultivation path ahead of him, noting that although he is only at the first stage of Kai refinement, his power is more than enough to handle ordinary people. Another student runs over and asks if Hayashida is okay. Hayashida stutters and clutches his arm, claiming he just needs a quick checkup at the infirmary. He glances back at Reis and sees him glaring down with glowing blue eyes and a dark, terrifying aura. Hayashida trembles in fear, realizing that Reis is not an idiot or a normal college student. He nervously asks if he can leave. The nearby students watch in confusion as Hayashida shakes in fear. Reis steps closer and realizes that since Hayashida didn't even know he was Kasumi's brother, someone else must have sent him to start a fight. Reis tells Hayashida he was being used and demands to know who set him up. A terrified Hayashida confesses that a first-year business student named Minami Hiroki manipulated him by showing him photos of Reis and Kasumi together. Hayashida offers to go with Reis to help settle the problem. Suddenly, Kasumi's voice rings out across the field calling for her big brother. Reis turns to see her approaching. Kasumi rushes over to Reis and asks if he is hurt. She stands protectively in front of him and yells at Hayashida to stay away from her brother. A terrified Hayashida quickly turns around and runs away. Kasumi then introduces her best friend, Furuya Runa. Reis looks at Runa and immediately notices she has a pure yin constitution with blocked meridians. He realizes this means she won't live long. He thinks to himself that he could have saved her with his past strength, but he cannot do anything right now. He decides to deal with it later, focusing first on finding out if Minami Hiroki is connected to the poison needle. Reis asks Kasumi where the business administration department is. She points to a large brown building nearby. Reis tells them he is just going to have a look and walks toward the building, determined to drag out everyone who set him up. Kasumi watches him go and notes that her brother has truly changed. Inside a classroom in the business building, students gossip about Hayashida getting sent to the infirmary by the so-called idiot Tojo. Sitting quietly at a desk, Minami Hiroki listens and assumes the Tojo family ordered Reis to pretend to be a fool. A dark purple aura surrounds Minami as he slams his hand on the desk. He vows to crush Reis himself in the name of the Minami family to make the whole university know his name. The classroom doors suddenly swing open, and Reis walks in. He demands to know where Minami Hiroki is. The professor tells him to leave if he isn't enrolled, but Reis ignores him. The students whisper in surprise, recognizing Reis. Minami smirks from his desk, pleased that Reis actually came. Two muscular students step in front of Reis to block his path. They yell that he will have to go through them first and swing their fists at him. Reis stands calmly, Thinking that the attacks of ordinary people are painfully slow, he easily ducks under their punches. Moving quickly, Reis delivers a powerful strike directly into one of the attacker's faces. The student is launched backward and crashes onto the floor, bleeding from his head. Reis stands over the defeated students. He clenches his fist, his eyes glowing blue, and tells them he will say it one more time. Bring him Minami Hiroki. The students in the classroom are shocked that Reis took down the attacker so easily. They whisper that Minami comes from the Defense Ministry family and is on a completely different level of strength. Minami pulls off his shirt to reveal a muscular build surrounded by a glowing red aura. He confidently introduces himself. Reis looks at him and notes that he is actually built well and seems seriously angry. The professor yells at them, demanding to know what they are doing in his classroom. Reis calmly tells him to relax and says it will be over quickly. Minami asks if Reis wants to take the fight outside to the field. Reis says right here is fine. He asks Minami why he targeted him and who ordered it, offering to go a little easy on him if he answers. Minami gets furious, stating that no one has ever talked that big in front of him. He lunges forward and throws a massive punch at Reis's face. Reis catches Minami's fist effortlessly with one hand without even flinching. Reis calls his attack pathetic, noting that it is all brute force with absolutely no technique. Minami starts sweating in panic as he realizes he cannot pull his fist back. Reis then delivers a powerful kick straight into Minami's stomach. The impact sends Minami flying backward through the air. He crashes hard into several desks and chairs. The classroom erupts in panic. The professor yells that he will report the violence to the university. The students cannot believe Reis actually flattened Minami. They whisper that the Minami family will not let this slide, and that Reis must have a death wish since even the professors are afraid of them. Minami struggles on the floor, clutching his stomach in pain. Reis walks over and crouches in front of the defeated student. He asks Minami if targeting his family was his own family's idea. A terrified Minami asks what Reis is going to do. Reis warns him that if he has any business in the future, he should bring it directly to him and leave his family out of it. Reis then grabs both of Minami's arms and snaps them backward, breaking them instantly. Minami screams in agony as he lies broken on the classroom floor. Reis looks down at Minami and tells him he just dislocated both of his shoulders. He asks if Minami wants to keep going. Minami cries, gives up, and promises never to go near the Tojo family again. Reis corrects him, stating it is the Hazuki family. Minami quickly agrees. Reis turns and walks away. He thinks to himself that if he hadn't been strong enough today, Kasumi would have definitely been harassed. As Reis leaves, the other students panic and rush to get Minami to a hospital. The professor is outraged by the violence and asks for the attacker's name so he can report him. A student tells him it is Tojo Reis, the famous campus idiot. The professor wonders if Reis is just considered an idiot because he acts so recklessly. In another classroom, a student shows Kasumi a viral post on the school forum. The post features a picture of Reis kicking Minami, with a caption saying the campus idiot annihilated Minami in seconds. Kasumi smiles brightly and calls her brother cool. Her friend Runa warns her that Minami's family works for the Defense Ministry and Reis could be in serious trouble. Kasumi immediately calls Reis to warn him. Outside, a campus loudspeaker announces that second-year Tojo Reis is facing disciplinary action for assault. Reis walks away from the school grounds, completely ignoring the announcement. He answers Kasumi's call. She yells through the phone, frantically asking how he can be so calm when the Minami family will definitely retaliate. Reis tells her he will deal with it when it happens. He remembers his past life, thinking that if he gets scared of something this small, he will never reach the immortal path again. Kasumi tells him to lay low on campus, but Reis says he has already left the gate. When she asks where he is going, he simply says he is going to get stronger. At a hospital, Minami lies in a bed with his arms heavily bandaged. His mother is furious that someone dared to hit her son in public. Minami begs her not to tell his father or older brother, because he wants to get revenge himself to save his reputation at the university. An older man in the room sneers that an abandoned Tojo family dared to attack their Hiroki. Back on the street, Reis clutches his chest. He acknowledges that while the Minamis are not that powerful, he still cannot be careless. He notes his current body is far too weak, and he needs to power up fast. He decides it is time to move his plan forward and hails a taxi. Once inside, he tells the driver to take him to the nearest Chinese medicine pharmacy. He looks at a small notebook, thinking that if he can successfully refine a medical pill, he might finally be able to awaken. Reis goes to the Rushodo Chinese medicine pharmacy. He orders a large list of specific herbs, including licorice, goji berries, and gardenia. The pharmacists are surprised he is buying so much without a prescription. Reis buys everything and leaves carrying a massive sack of herbs over his shoulder. He realizes he just spent 2 months' worth of living expenses and is completely broke. He needs a quiet place to refine the herbs into pills, but he has no money left to rent a room. Suddenly, Kasumi and her friend Runner run up behind him. Kasumi scolds him for leaving campus and asks if he robbed the pharmacy. Reis calmly asks Kasumi to lend him some money. Kasumi and Runner are surprised, as he has never asked for money before. Reis explains he needs to rent a room to process the herbs so he can get smarter. Kasumi checks her wallet but only has 20,000 yen, which Reis says is not enough. Runner steps forward and offers him her bank card. She tells him she has 80,000 yen in her account that he can use first. Runner hands over the card and tells him the pin. As Reis looks at her, he again visualizes her pure yin constitution. He sees that the deadly yin energy has seeped all the way into her bones, meaning she will die before she turns 22 unless an expert intervenes. He accepts the card, thanks her, and promises to pay her back in 2 weeks. As Reis walks away, Runner wonders why she trusts him so easily. Feeling like he radiates a reliable aura, Reis acknowledges that while this money is nothing to a cultivator, it is all the money she has. He decides he now owes her a debt. Reis visualizes her drowning in deep water due to her condition. He thinks most people would give up on her, but he vows to stand between her and the King of Hell to keep her alive so he can repay the favor 10 times over. Later, Reis meets with a landlady to rent an apartment. She tells him the total is 36,000 yen upfront for the rent and deposit. Reis pays her and walks into the empty, run-down room. He decides it is good enough as long as he can refine his pills. Noting that raising his cultivation is the fastest way to earn more money, Reis sets up multiple large metal pots on portable gas stoves on the floor. He reflects that pill refining requires 3 key factors: herb quality, flame control, and activating the medicinal properties. His hand glows with blue kai as he levitates the packages of herbs in the air. He notes that each herb must be handled differently, some burned with fire, others dissolved in water to draw out their full power. He drops the ingredients into the pots. He knows the herbs are weak due to Earth's low spiritual energy, but his past knowledge will let him create a basic kai refining pill. He pushes his blue kai directly into the flames to perfectly control the heat. Reis watches the pots and thinks the process is too easy. Suddenly, the apartment door is violently kicked open. A blond man walks in with 2 masked men holding bats. The leader smirks and says it took a while to find him, then orders his men to attack. Reis is annoyed that they interrupted him during a critical step of the refinement. He tells them he doesn't have time to play and uses a technique called True Dragon Fist First Form. With a burst of blue energy, Reis instantly strikes down both masked men, sending them crashing to the floor. Reis looks at the blonde leader and offers to go easy on him if he tells him who sent them. The leader smirks and says it makes sense how Reis beat Hiroki. He states he is not just some ordinary college kid and lunges forward with a powerful punch surrounded by a yellow aura. Reis blocks the strike with his elbow but is pushed back by the force. He realizes the man is compressing environmental kai into his body through sheer training. Reis identifies him as a martial artist, someone far beyond an ordinary human but not quite a true cultivator. The two exchange a rapid flurry of punches. The leader notices Reis is trying to protect the boiling pot. Taking advantage of this, the leader kicks the pot, shattering it into pieces. Reis is distracted and frustrated that his refinement was interrupted so close to the end. The leader uses the opening to land a devastating punch directly on Reis's face, sending him flying backward and crashing hard into the ground. A large cloud of dust fills the room. As the smoke clears, Reis is seen standing up with a smile, holding a glowing golden pill in his mouth. He thinks to himself that he wanted to simmer it longer, but it will have to do. He bites down on the pill. A massive aura of golden fire erupts around his body. He stares at the shocked leader and tells him he will use him to test the strength of his new second stage of kai refinement. The leader sweats in fear as he feels the overwhelming pressure radiating from Reis's fiery golden aura. Unable to believe it is the same person from a moment ago, the leader decides he cannot hesitate and must strike first. He lunges forward with everything he has. Reis calmly raises his hand and unleashes a massive, palm-shaped blast of golden energy. The powerful blast hits the leader head-on, sending him flying backward to crash violently onto the floor. Reis looks at his hand, amazed by the massive difference in power between the first and second stages of Kai refinement. The leader cries in terror, clutching his injured arm. He screams that there is no way a random college student is this strong and asks what Reis actually is. Reis tells him to be quiet and casually fires a thin, concentrated beam of energy that grazes the leader's neck and scorches the wall behind him. Reis steps closer, his hand glowing with golden fire, and demands to know who ordered the attack. He threatens to obliterate the leader just like the broken desk if he doesn't answer. The terrified leader begs for his life and confesses that Minami Hiroki sent them. Reis notes that Minami moved faster than expected to get his revenge. An aura suddenly surrounds Reis. He glares down at the trembling leader and promises that the Minami family is going to pay this debt in full. Sweating profusely, the leader forces a nervous smile and asks if they can leave now that he has told him everything. Reis agrees, but on one condition. The leader braces for the worst, but Reis just points at his trashed apartment and tells them they are paying for the damages. The leader is shocked that Reis only wants money. Reis glares at him and asks if there is a problem. The leader immediately shouts no. He kicks one of his masked men on the floor and orders him to hurry up and transfer the money. The henchman quickly transfers 200,000 yen to Reis's phone. The leader nervously shows Reis the confirmation screen and asks if they can go. Reis coldly tells them to get out of his sight. The three thugs scramble to their feet and sprint out the door in a panic. As they run away, the henchman asks if this is really okay since Minami hired them for the job. The leader yells back, asking if the henchman seriously wants to go back and pick another fight with a monster like that. As the thugs leave, the leader smirks and thinks to himself that being strong isn't everything, believing that power always loses to authority. Back in the room, Reis sighs and looks down at his crushed pots. He originally planned to break through to the third stage of Kai refinement, but he only reached the second stage, and his power is still unstable. He holds the few remaining golden pills in his hand and tosses them all into his mouth. He sits cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a blazing fiery aura, focusing on stabilizing his cultivation so he doesn't fall back to the first stage. As he purifies his body, dark impurities ooze from his skin. Suddenly, his eye flashes with a brilliant purple light. He is shocked to discover a hidden bloodline within Reis's body called the Violet Demon Eyes. This rare ability allows the user to pierce the essence of all things and reveal their true nature. Reis smiles, remembering how he longed for a power like this in his previous life. He notes that his misfortune of having his refinement interrupted actually turned into a massive blessing. However, the purple light in his eye suddenly fades, and he gets dizzy. He stumbles and realizes that the eyes burn through his spiritual energy way too fast. At his current second stage, he can only use the ability for a few minutes before running out of energy. He collapses onto his back on the floor, completely exhausted. He starts stressing about his lack of money, noting that between buying herbs, paying for the room repairs, and regular living expenses, he is completely broke. He thinks about how troublesome life in the mortal world is because money constantly chains people down. Suddenly, his phone pings with a notification. He reads a news article about a man who found a Ming Dynasty vase at a flea market and sold it for 200 million yen. Reis realizes this is the perfect solution. With his new violet demon eyes, he can go to the antique market, spot hidden treasures, and easily make a fortune. Reis immediately leaves the apartment and heads straight to the Josai antique market. He walks through the busy, crowded outdoor market, hoping to find something valuable. He takes a deep breath and activates his violet demon eyes. His eyes glow with a swirling purple energy as he looks around at the different stalls. A vendor calls out to Reis, offering to sell him a Ming Dynasty porcelain vase for 600,000. Reis activates his violet demon eyes and immediately sees that the vase is a fake. He tells the vendor the aged finish is embarrassingly sloppy. The angry vendor tells Reis to stop acting knowledgeable when he can't even afford it. Reis walks away, realizing the antique market is a mix of trash and treasure. He rubs his eye, noting that the violet demon eyes burn through his spiritual energy too fast for him to just wander blindly. Suddenly, he senses a faint spiritual energy fluctuation. He looks over at a nearby stall and spots a black lump of iron. His eyes reveal a glowing green spiritual energy hidden inside it. He notes that although the energy is weak, it is extremely precious in this world. A man in a camouflage jacket walks past. Reis watches his movements and realizes the man is trained in martial arts, noting there are more powerful people here than he thought. The stall vendor tells Reis not to just stand there and offers to negotiate prices. Reis thinks that if he goes straight for the iron, he will draw too much attention to himself. Instead, he points to 3 different items and asks for their prices. The vendor smiles, thinking Reis is an easy sucker. He prices a necklace at 20,000, a folding fan at 36,000, and the iron at 10,000. Reis acts shocked at the high prices to play along. He decides to pretend he is only after the fan. He picks it up and tells the vendor he likes it, suggesting that if the vendor won't drop the price, he should throw in the iron for free. The vendor happily agrees and hands over the iron, mentioning he just picked it up at a construction site anyway. Reis pays the 36,000 and walks away holding the iron. He thinks to himself that he hit the jackpot and can use the spiritual energy inside it to forge at least one artifact. The vendor watches him leave and calls him an idiot for paying that much. A short distance away, Reis opens the folding fan with a smirk. He notes that the fan is actually a genuine antique and he can easily flip it for 100 times the price he paid. Suddenly, someone in the crowd yells for help, asking if there is a doctor around because a man has collapsed. Reis looks over and sees the martial artist in the camo jacket from earlier standing next to a young man holding an unconscious older man. The young man frantically orders the camo guy, Yosuke, to call an ambulance. Reis recognizes the camo guy's martial arts background and wonders if they are from a distinguished family. He quickly decides it isn't his problem and turns to walk away so he can get back to forging his new artifact. Just as he leaves, the young man screams that he doesn't care who does it. He will pay 2 million to anyone who saves his grandfather. Reis immediately stops in his tracks. Hearing the massive reward, he smiles and thinks to himself that there is no reason not to help. Yosuke tells the young master that the ambulance will take 10 minutes to arrive. The young master cries, saying that will be too late, and begs the crowd for a doctor. The bystanders hesitate, murmuring that someone's life is too big of a responsibility to take on. Reis pushes his way through the crowd and approaches them. He looks down and confidently states that he can save him. The young master looks up with tears in his eyes and asks if Reis is a doctor. Reis calmly replies that he isn't, but he can still save him. Yosuke gets angry and calls Reis a brat, telling him to stop spouting nonsense. He asks if Reis can take responsibility if something goes wrong and forcefully reaches out to grab his shoulder. Reis effortlessly catches Yosuke's hand mid-swing without even flinching. Holding the martial artist's wrist in a tight grip, Reis warns them that if they keep wasting time, the old man definitely won't make it. Yosuke pulls his hand back in shock. Unable to comprehend how this random kid is so strong, Reis ignores him and orders the young master to sit the grandfather up. Desperate to save his grandfather, the young master nervously agrees. Reis channels blue Kai into his hand. He thinks to himself that his second stage Kai is weak, but it is enough to stimulate the heart meridians. He presses his glowing palm firmly against the old man's back. The blue energy pulses directly into the man's body. Suddenly, the grandfather jolts forward and violently coughs up a large amount of blood onto the pavement. The young master panics and screams for his grandfather. Yosuke flies into a rage, calling Reis a bastard and demanding to know what he just did. Yosuke lunges forward and throws a heavy punch directly at Reis's face. Reis easily dodges the punch by just moving his head to the side. He casually steps past the attacker. Yosuke turns around and yells at Reis, asking if he is trying to run. Before Yosuke can move, Reis instantly appears right in front of him and points a single finger directly at his forehead. Reis glares at him and gives a final warning to not cause any more trouble. Yosuke freezes in terror, sweating heavily. He cannot believe someone is this fast. noting his own past experience in a military unit. The grandfather suddenly speaks up and tells them that is enough. The young master turns and happily realizes his grandfather is awake. The old man coughs and sits up. He rubs his chest and explains that he feels much better because the tightness is gone and he can finally breathe. He looks at Yosuke and orders him to stand down, stating that Reis just saved his life. Yosuke nervously agrees and steps back. The grandfather thanks Reis and says he will never forget this debt of gratitude. Reis turns around and says as long as he gets his money, that is enough for him. The crowd murmurs about his focus on money. Reis looks at the young master and reminds him about the 200 million reward. The young master nervously agrees. The grandfather laughs loudly, saying he likes honest people, and orders Yosuke to hand over the money. Yosuke apologizes for swinging at him earlier and hands Reis a thick stack of cash. The crowd is shocked to see that much money out in the open. Reis holds the cash and thinks to himself that they must be loaded to carry that much around. Reis says goodbye and turns to leave, but the grandfather stops him. The grandfather explains that he gets these attacks all the time. The hospital diagnosed him with a chronic heart disease and told him there is no real cure. He notes that what Reis just did didn't feel like a simple first aid trick. He asks Reis if he can cure the disease completely. Reis visualizes the old man's internal body, noting his aging meridians and stagnant blood. He knows his pills can cure him, so he calmly says yes. The young master and Yosuke are surprised because the doctors said they could only maintain the condition. Reis tells them that the doctors might not be able to cure it, but he can. The grandfather asks how much money he wants for the cure. Reis holds up one finger. He states his price is 200 million a year, and in exchange, he will keep the grandfather alive for 20 years. The bystanders are shocked, calculating that the total price is 4 billion and calling it way too expensive. The grandfather bursts into loud laughter. He says the price is downright cheap and immediately agrees to pay. He asks for an account number so he can transfer the funds tomorrow. But Reis turns around and states that he only takes cash. Reis tells him to bring the money the day after tomorrow, and he will treat him on the spot. The grandfather agrees and asks for his name. Reis simply says his name is Tojo and walks away through the crowd. The young master, Toshia, nervously asks his grandfather if they can really trust Reis since 4 billion is a huge amount. The grandfather asks Toshia if he didn't notice that Reis's strength rivaled Yosuke's and his life-saving technique was miraculous. The grandfather smiles confidently and says that in his long, turbulent life, he has never once misjudged a person. He states there is absolutely no way that young man is ordinary. Reis walks down the street alone, pleased with his haul for the day. He thinks about the 200 million in cash he just made and the lump of iron filled with spiritual energy. He notes that once the 4 billion comes in the day after tomorrow, all of his money problems will finally be solved. Suddenly, he stops as his ear twitches. He notices that he is being tailed by 3 people about 30 meters behind him. He realizes they have been following him for a while. As their shadows stretch across the pavement behind him, Reis calmly walks toward an alley. He wonders if it is more trouble from Minami Hiroki's lackeys, or if the old man's bodyguards are just shadowing him out of concern. Reis walks into an empty alley at sunset. He stops and looks back, recognizing the footsteps behind him. It is the blonde leader from the apartment, who now has his arm in a sling. He brought 2 new muscular men with him. One of the men tells the leader to relax because they are stronger. The leader warns them that Reis is dangerous, but notes they won't attack him head-on this time. Reis turns around and decides he won't go easy on them anymore. The blonde leader smirks and asks if Reis expected to see him again. Reis calmly replies that he did. A dark red aura flares around Reis as he thinks to himself that the loser came back just to get killed. The leader gets angry and orders his men to attack. The 2 henchmen charge forward, yelling that they will send Reis to hell. Reis stands perfectly still. He notes that while they are stronger than normal people, they are still no match for his second stage of Kai. He wonders why they keep coming back just to get beaten. As the men swing their fists, Reis uses his speed to vanish, leaving behind a blue blur. The henchmen are shocked by his speed and wonder when he moved. Reis instantly reappears and strikes both men in the chest with glowing golden palms. The blast sends both of them flying backward through the air. Seeing his men defeated, the desperate blonde leader pulls out a knife and charges forward. He swings the blade directly at Reis's face, yelling that this is the end. Reis keeps a calm expression and effortlessly catches the knife blade between two fingers. Reis holds the knife between his fingers and reminds the leader he already let him go once. The leader sweats in panic. Reis delivers a powerful kick directly to the leader's chest, sending him flying backward. The leader spits blood and loses his sunglasses before crashing hard onto the pavement. Reis twirls the captured knife and asks the bleeding leader how much Manami paid him for a suicide job. The leader struggles on the ground but smiles, warning Reis not to think he has won. Reis is confused by the comment until he suddenly hears loud sirens. 2 police cars speed into the alley and block both exits. An older officer with a mustache steps out and orders everyone to get down. Reis thinks to himself that his second stage Kai still isn't strong enough to deflect bullets. Knowing that fighting armed police would make things too messy, he complies and raises his hands while still holding the knife. The officer announces that they are all under arrest for group assault and using dangerous weapons. Reis calmly explains that he was attacked and the knife belongs to the thugs. The officer smirks and points out that Reis is the one currently holding the weapon, dismissing his explanation as a cheap excuse. He orders his men to take everyone to the station. The police handcuff Reis and the attackers. As they walk to the cars, the blonde leader smirks at Reis and whispers that he is done for. Inside the police car, Reis sits handcuffed in the back seat. He asks the older officer driving what the plan is and tells him to start talking. The officer lights a cigarette and says Reis should know better than anyone who he pissed off. Reis guesses Minami Hiroki. The officer laughs and confirms it. He mocks Reis, calling him an abandoned stray from the Tojo family who dared to anger the Minamis. The officer blows smoke and states that being able to throw a punch means nothing in front of real power and authority. Reis sits silently in the dark back seat. His eyes glow slightly purple as he silently promises to pay Minami back double for the setup. In a hospital building at sunset. In his hospital room, Minami Hiroki talks on the phone with an associate who confirms that Reis has been arrested. Minami smiles wickedly and orders them to skip the questioning and throw Reis straight into prison. He reveals that his guys are already waiting inside the cell to teach Reis exactly what happens when someone makes him angry. A prison cell is shown with 2 large thugs waiting in the shadows with glowing red eyes. In the back of the police car, Reis calmly tells the older officer that if they are going to arrest him, they should wait and do it 2 days from now. The older officer laughs and asks if Reis really thinks Minami would give him that much time. Reis warns them that if they release him now, they won't lose their jobs, but if they refuse, they will regret the choice they made today. A dark aura suddenly erupts from Reis in the back seat. The older officer gets furious and yells at Reis, calling him nothing more than a discarded child of the Tojo family. The younger officer driving gets nervous and asks the captain what if Reis is actually someone powerful. The captain yells at him to shut up, insisting that Minami is the one who holds the real power. The police car arrives at the Josai Security Bureau at night. The officers pull Reis out of the car and take him inside. The older officer salutes the director and reports that they have brought in the suspect. The director praises their work and announces that the paperwork is already finished, ordering them to throw Reis directly into cell 137. Reis looks at the director and casually asks what would happen if the public found out he was forging documents to frame an innocent person. The director flashes a massive, arrogant smirk. He tells Reis that around here, his word is absolute, mocking the idea that a mere college student could ever oppose him. The director orders the officers to confiscate everything Reis is carrying so he cannot try anything funny. The officers grab Reis and lead him down the hallway. Reis realizes his fate in the prison was already decided in advance and suspects there is a specific reason they chose cell 137. They stop in front of the heavy iron door. The officers push him inside, smiling maliciously as they tell him to get along with his seniors and not cause trouble. The cell door slams shut. Inside the dark room, several pairs of glowing red eyes stare at him from the shadows. A scarred inmate with golden teeth grins and tells his boss that this is the guy Minami specifically paid them to take care of. The boss agrees and orders the scarred man to teach Reis the rules of the place. Reis stands in the center of the cell surrounded by muscular inmates. He figures Minami must have paid them a lot of money to do this. Completely ignoring the thugs, Reis calmly walks toward an empty bunk bed. A thug with a mohawk angrily grabs Reis's shoulder from behind, demanding to know if he heard them talking. Reis turns slightly, his eye glowing a sharp blue, and coldly tells the man to move. The thug gets furious and yells that he will beat the hell out of him, even without Minami's orders. The mohawk thug lunges forward and throws a heavy punch at Reis. Reis keeps a calm expression and easily catches the fist with one hand. With a quick, brutal motion, Reis snaps the thug's arm backward, breaking it instantly. The thug drops to the floor, screaming in agony and clutching his broken limb. The boss watches in shock from his bed. Reis stands perfectly still as the rest of the gang slowly gets up and surrounds him. The boss walks up to Reis, noting he has some skill. He tells Reis that he has no choice but to obey in this place. He threatens to break every bone in Reis's body and promises that every guy in the cell will have their way with him. He tells him to enjoy the consequences of making an enemy out of Minami. The other inmates cheer and tell the boss to hurry up so they can have a turn next. The boss steps closer and tells Reis to kneel down and lick his feet, offering to go a little easy on him if he does. As he places his hand on Reis's shoulder, Reis instantly grabs his hand and snaps his fingers backward with a loud crack. Reis's eyes glow a cold blue. He glares at the boss and reminds him that he already told him to move. The boss clutches his broken hand in shock. Furious, he yells at the rest of the inmates to attack. He grins maliciously, reminding them that Minami said they could do whatever they want to him. The other thugs rush forward from all sides, throwing punches. Reis watches them approach and notes that they all reek of bloodshed, confirming they are nothing but scum. A massive, blazing blue aura erupts around Reis's body. He clenches his fists, deciding there is absolutely no need to hold back against criminals this vicious.